I was a 16-year-old sophomore when my parents erased me from their lives after finding out I was pregnant, only to come knocking 2 decades later, desperate to meet a grandson who was never real. I'm Emma Lawson. I'm 36, and it has been 20 years since my parents, Robert and Diana Lawson, threw me out of their pristine Portland home. I remember every detail of that night. November rain, cold and sharp. The weight of a single suitcase in my hand. My mother, her face a mask of cold fury, pointing a trembling finger toward the door and telling me I was dead to them. That same evening, while I was still reeling, they had papers drawn up. Legal documents that officially severed me from the family, from their name, from their inheritance. They signed away their daughter and any child she might ever have, as if I were a bad investment they needed to liquidate. I kept those papers. I kept everything. The pain, the anger, the documents that proved I had been written out of their story. For 20 years, I was a ghost to them. They told their friends and neighbors I had moved to Europe to study, building their perfect reputation on the ashes of the daughter they had discarded. Then, last week, they appeared at my front door, all forced smiles and desperate demands. They had told 200 of their most influential friends about a successful grandson, and they wanted to show him off. They even offered me $250,000. They had no idea the grandson they had been bragging about for months didn't exist, and what they discovered inside my home would shatter the foundation of their carefully constructed lives. It was Portland, Oregon in the fall of 2004. I was a sophomore at St. Catherine's Academy. I was the youngest of 3 children. On the surface, we were the ideal family, well-respected, devout, and wealthy. My father was a partner at a prestigious law firm, Myers and Walsh, which he had co-founded in the late 80s. My mother was the president of the school staff and the unofficial social director of our church. Every Sunday, we sat in the front pew, dressed in matching outfits she had laid out the night before. But every family has its internal order, and I quickly learned my place. My older brother Mark was 22 and in dental school. He was the golden child, the one destined to carry the family name. My sister, Laura, 20, was studying education, the quiet daughter who never rocked the boat. And then, there was me. I was what my mother called a surprise, born 6 years after my sister, an unplanned addition to their tidy life. I don't think she ever forgave me for it. The signs were always there, subtle but constant. My school photos were never displayed in the living room. When my siblings' achievements were celebrated over dinner, my own successes were met with a dismissive nod. I learned early on to stay small, to be quiet, to not ask for anything. My father had a favorite saying that he repeated like a mantra at every family gathering, a warning about the fragility of status. He didn't know then that I would be the storm that his reputation couldn't weather. I met Daniel at the public library. It sounds mundane, but for me, the library was my sanctuary, a place where I wasn't expected to be perfect. He went to the local public high school, which my parents wouldn't even acknowledge existed. He was 17, worked at his uncle's garage, and had the kindest eyes I had ever seen. He found me crying in the biography section one afternoon after my mother had forgotten to pick me up from school for the 3rd time that month. "Hey," he said softly, sitting across from me. "Are you okay?" No one had asked me that in a very long time. We kept our relationship a secret for a couple of months. He was patient and gentle, and he made me feel like I mattered. When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified, but Daniel held my hand and promised we would figure it out. He didn't run away. Part of me believed him. I knew my parents would ask, "What will people think?" Before they asked, "Are you okay?" I decided to tell them at Sunday dinner. It turned out to be my last meal in that house. I told my family I had something to say. The table went silent as 4 faces turned to me. My father looked impatient. My mother looked suspicious. "I'm pregnant," I said. My mother's fork clattered against her plate. My father's face went completely pale, then red with rage. "Who is the father?" he asked, his voice cold. "Is it someone from St. Catherine's? Someone we know?" When I told him it was a boy from the public school who worked at an auto garage, the silence that followed was a living thing. "His name is Daniel," I said, trying to defend him. "He's a good person." My father cut me off. "If you keep that baby, you are no longer part of this family." By 9:15 p.m., I was standing on the front porch in the pouring rain with only one suitcase. My mother opened the door and pointed to the street, telling me to leave. I looked up at the upstairs window and saw my brother and sister watching. Neither of them came downstairs. I called Daniel from a payphone at a gas station. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial. He picked up on the second ring. "What happened?" "They kicked me out," I sobbed into the receiver. 20 minutes later, his uncle's truck pulled up. Daniel jumped out and wrapped me in his jacket, holding me while I cried. We had no plan. We had about $300 and a truck with bad brakes. That's when Mrs. Evelyn Carter saved my life. She was our neighbor, a retired school teacher who lived 3 houses down. She had watched me stand in the rain from her window. "Stay with me," she said when I knocked on her door late that night. "As long as you need." We stayed with Mrs. Carter for 2 weeks while Daniel searched for a studio apartment for us. We found one in Seattle, a small place above a laundromat reeking of bleach. My parents sent me a letter. It was certified mail, requiring my signature. The document stated that I was relinquishing all inheritance rights and that the family held no obligation toward me or any child I might have. I kept that letter. I kept it for 20 years. My daughter Emily was born on July 6, 2005. She was 7 pounds, 4 ounces, and she came into the world screaming. I thought, good, scream. Don't ever let anyone make you small. The first few years were a blur of survival. Daniel worked double shifts at the repair shop while I finished my GED and started community college classes. We lived on whatever we could afford. We didn't get married. We were always waiting for someday. Then, on March 15, 2010, a delivery truck ran a red light. Daniel was driving home from his night shift. He died on impact. He was 26. I was 22, a single mother with a 4-year-old child and $12,000 from a life insurance policy. That was all he had to leave us. I could have given up then, but I didn't. I had started doing small interior design projects on the side while Daniel was alive. I had an eye for it. It was a way to create small worlds of beauty when my own world felt broken. After Daniel died, I threw myself into the work. In 2012, I met Susan at a design workshop. She was an older, retired professional who took an interest in my work. She saw something in me I didn't see in myself. "Raw talent," she said. "Let me help you shape it." With her mentorship and a small business loan, I started my own interior design firm. By 2018, I had 8 employees. By 2022, I was featured in a local magazine. Now, I have 22 employees and my own corner office. My daughter, Emily, is a sophomore at the University of Washington. 20 years, no contact. Then, on a Tuesday in November, I came home to find a black Mercedes with Oregon plates parked in my driveway. I sat in my car and watched my parents stand at my front door. My father was grayer now, his shoulders more stooped. My mother still held herself with that rigid posture. I thought about driving away. I was 36 years old. I owned a company. I had built a life without them. I wasn't going to run. I got out of the car and walked toward them. "We know about your son," my father said, skipping any pleasantries. "We know you have a son." I stared at him in confusion. "We want to meet him," my mother added. "We want to be a family again." I almost laughed. 20 years of pretending I didn't exist, and they were standing on my porch asking to meet a grandson who didn't exist. I let them in. I don't know why. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I needed to hear what 20 years of silence had led to. They sat in my living room, taking in the hardwood floors, the artwork, the custom shelves. They were appraising my life. Then my father got to the point. The 50-year anniversary party is on the 15th, he said. We're hosting it at the Heathman. The mayor will be there. The church elders. People are asking questions, my mother cut in. They want to know about you. We told them you had a son. My blood ran cold. You told them I had a son? They explained how they had read the magazine article. They saw I had a successful business and a child. They assumed the child was a boy, and they had built an entire story around it. They offered me $250,000 to bring this fictional son to their anniversary party. They wanted me to smile for the cameras and pretend nothing had happened. They wanted to be a family again. If I refuse, I asked. My father's jaw tightened. We would prefer not to involve your son directly, but if necessary, we can reach out to him ourselves. It was a threat. They were willing to contact my child to manipulate me. I was about to answer when I heard footsteps on the stairs. It was Emily. "Mom, everything okay?" she asked, walking down the stairs in her college sweatshirt. My mother rose from the couch, her face cycling from confusion to horror. "Who is this?" "This is my daughter," I said, standing between them. "Emily, daughter?" My father sputtered. "But we read the article," it said. "You made an assumption," I said. Emily looked at the strangers in our living room. "These are them?" she asked, her voice steady. "The grandparents who threw you out?" My mother flinched. "That's not. It was different back then." "Which part was different?" Emily asked, crossing her arms. "The part where you kicked a pregnant teen out in the rain, or the part where you pretended she didn't exist for 20 years? My parents sat in stunned silence. "Surprise," Emily said coldly. "You wanted a grandson, but you got me." I stood up. "You need to leave." "I'll think about what you said, but not now." At the door, my mother turned back. "Don't let old wounds ruin your future." After they left, Emily looked at me. "You're not actually considering this, are you?" "No," I said. "But I'm not done with them yet. Before we continue, let me ask you something. Have you ever stood where I stood, facing people who abandoned you, only to return when they needed something? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to see how this all unfolds, hit that subscribe button, because what happened next? Even I didn't see it coming. That night, after Emily went to bed, I pulled out a fireproof box I kept in the back of my closet. Inside were the documents of my erasure, the disinheritance letter, signed and notarized. The letter was 3 pages long, designed to be airtight. It explicitly forfeited my rights to the estate and disclaimed all obligation to me or any dependence thereof. My daughter, reduced to a footnote in a legal document, erased before she even existed. I photographed each page with my phone and uploaded them to the cloud. "Mom?" I looked up. Emily was standing in the doorway, unable to sleep. She came and sat beside me on the bed. "Is that the letter?" she asked. I nodded. She picked up the first page and read slowly. When she finished, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "They really did it," she whispered. "They just cut you out. What are you going to do with these?" she asked. I looked at my daughter, at the evidence of 20 years of cruelty. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But whatever I do, they won't be able to pretend anymore." The next morning, I made a call I hadn't made in years. Mrs. Carter, my old neighbor. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Grace, is that you?" I told her about the visit, about the imaginary grandson, about the party. When I finished, she was silent for a long moment. "Those people," she finally said, "they haven't changed." "Do you still have your security camera footage?" I asked. A pause. "I never delete anything. Let me check my files." 20 minutes later, I received an email with a grainy but clear image, a 16-year-old girl standing on a porch in the rain. The timestamp was visible in the corner, November 14th, 2004, 9:17 p.m. It was undeniable proof. "Whatever you need, honey," she said. "I've been waiting for this." Now I had the documents and the witnesses. I needed a plan. I spent the evening rereading the magazine article about my life. It was shared over 12,000 times. The article told my story of resilience, but didn't mention my parents' names. I had been protecting Emily, but now I realized it was time to stop protecting them. A few days later, I got a call from an Oregon number I didn't recognize. "Grace, it's Mark." I hadn't heard my brother's voice in 20 years. "I know I don't have the right to call," he said, "but I need to tell you some things before whatever happens next." "Talk," I said. He explained that my mother had invented the story about the grandson. She had seen the magazine article, saw I had a business and a child, and constructed a fantasy to brag about at her social clubs. She had been dining out on my imaginary son for months. "I should have come downstairs that night," he said, his voice cracking. "I should have stood up for you. I'm sorry." He told me he had almost called me years ago but was too ashamed. He told me my sister, Laura, also regretted what we had let happen. "At the party," he said, "Laura and I will be there. You won't be alone." I thanked him. He then told me one more thing. The party was going to be live streamed on the church's Facebook page. It was meant to be a show of unity. 200 witnesses in person and thousands more online. The following day, my father called. He was blunt. "Grace, we're running out of time. $250,000. Full reinstatement in the trust. Final offer. I'd been talking to Mark," I said. "He told me about the story you've been spinning." My father's voice hardened. "You're the one who destroyed this family. You brought shame. I was a scared 16-year-old, and you threw me away," I said, my voice steady. "I built a better life without you than I ever could have with you." The line went dead. I sat in my office, my heart pounding. 1 week. 200 guests, 1 live stream. It was time to stop letting them control the narrative. The night before the party, I sat down with Emily and Susan. "They want a performance," Susan said. "They want you to show up and smile for the cameras. They want to use you," Emily added, "to validate their lie." I looked at my mentor and my daughter. "I'm going to that party," I said, "not to give them what they want, to give myself what I need." I showed them the disinheritance letter and the photos from Mrs. Carter. "They've spent 20 years controlling my story," I said. "I want to tell the truth. On their stage." "I'm coming with you," Emily said, her voice firm. "They need to see who I really am, not their imaginary grandson." I called my brother that night. "Does your offer still stand?" I asked. "We're ready," he said. "Just know, we haven't told Mom and Dad you're coming. We wanted to respect your privacy." "Good," I said. "Don't warn them. Don't tell them I'm coming." The night of the anniversary party, the crystal ballroom, was everything my parents would have wanted. Chandeliers dripping crystal, white tablecloths and expensive flowers, 200 guests in formal attire holding champagne. I stood at the entrance with Emily. She wore a simple navy dress. I chose black. "Are you okay?" She whispered. "I'm terrified," I said, "but I'm okay." I walked in. My father was giving a speech on a raised platform. 50 years of marriage, he said, his voice booming. "Family is everything." My mother spotted me first. Her perfect smile froze. My father followed her gaze and stumbled over his words. The room began to buzz. Is that the daughter from the magazine? I thought she was in Europe. I started walking toward the stage. The crowd parted. Emily walked beside me, her chin high. Mark and Laura appeared at the edge of the crowd. They didn't try to stop me. I climbed the 3 steps to the platform and took the microphone from my father's hand. Hello, everyone, I said. My name is Emma Lawson. I am Robert and Diana's youngest daughter. The one you were told went to Europe. The silence was absolute. I didn't go to Europe. On November 14, 2004, my parents discovered I was pregnant at 16. That same night, they threw me out of the house. They had their lawyer draft papers disowning me. They told me I was dead to them. I held up the legal document. This is the letter my father mailed me. It says I forfeit all inheritance rights and that the family has no obligation to me or any dependents thereof. I gestured to Emily. That dependent is my daughter, Emily, your granddaughter who you have never met. The grandson you have been bragging about for months doesn't exist. You invented him. My father reached for the microphone. Grace, this isn't the place. When is the right time to tell the truth, Dad? I asked, holding the mic out of his reach. You came to my house last week offering me $250,000 to parade a fictional grandson at this party. I came here to stop being invisible. I turned to the crowd. I don't want your pity. I don't need it. I built a company worth millions. My daughter is a university student. We did it without the Lawson family. Mark stepped onto the stage, then Laura. They stood beside me. She's telling the truth, Mark said. We were there. We watched them throw her out. We never said anything. That was our failure. Mrs. Carter, standing in the back row, raised her hand. I have photos, she said. Proof. The room erupted into chaos. I handed the microphone back to my father. I didn't come here to destroy you, I said quietly. I came here to stop being invisible. Then I walked off the stage with my daughter. Behind us, the crystal ballroom was in shambles. The live stream was exploding. People were pulling out their phones. This is not revenge, I said. This is the truth. We left the hotel and stepped into the November air. I could breathe. The fallout was immediate. By midnight, the live stream clip had been shared thousands of times. By morning, it was viral. The mayor left the party early. The church elders called for a meeting. My father resigned from his positions. A week later, my mother called. Her voice was small. I watched the video, she said. I just wanted to hear your voice. Why did you call? I asked. Because I realized I might never hear it again. I didn't forgive her. I'm not sure I ever will. But we stayed on the line for a minute without speaking. Thanksgiving was different. My dining table seated 12 people. Emily was at my right hand. Susan was at my left. Mrs. Carter was teaching my niece how to fold napkins. Mark carved the turkey. My parents weren't there. Maybe they will be someday, maybe not. But looking around that table, I realized something. I spent 20 years mourning a family that didn't want me. Now I'm surrounded by people who chose to be here. The family you build is stronger than the one you are born into. If you are in a situation where family makes you feel small, I understand. But here is what I know now. You don't need their validation to know your value. Sometimes the best thing you can do is live your life unashamed and unafraid. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a real ending. And real endings don't need applause. They just need the truth. If my story means something to you, please like this video and subscribe to Winds of Thought. Share your own story in the comments, because everyone deserves to be seen.